Uh, with that, I would like to pass the mic to Pankti. Pankti, welcome to the stage. I know this is actually your first time on Clubhouse, but don't worry at all. We're all just hanging out. If you want to maybe introduce yourself, share a little bit about your journey, and why you made the decision to go vegan, and why do you think it's important that we go vegan?
I think Sunny, it was the YJA that we met at, like 3 4 years ago? 3 years ago? That was probably the initiation of like going vegan as a Jain, for me, because there were a couple of classes where that was introduced as like an idea that if we don't eat meat, why do we support eating dairy and things like that that still cause probably the same amount of violence. And so for me, that was a really conflicting idea because I love cheese. I could not tell you what my life was without cheese before I went vegan. But ice cream, pizza, cheese in general, were all huge parts of my life. And I think that YJA was the first time where I had to take a step back to really think about if that was worth what we put the animals that gave us those kinds of products through. And I think being in America, you're quite aware that the dairy industry is not friendly, and it's probably like the same amount of like, if you don't eat a burger, why would you eat cheese? So to me, actually last year was the year that I went cold turkey. It was during Bersian. I just gave it up. So my brother and my mom were already vegan before then. They had the same conversation years ago, and Pars is my brother, sorry. He was very much like, as a Jain, the whole concept is nonviolence. And so if we're choosing to be nonviolent and choosing to not eat meat or choosing to not have products like leather or things like that because of the background in that, why would we choose to have milk or cheese and things like that? And so for me, I think last year during Bersian, I just thought it wasn't worth what I already knew. Like, ignorance wasn't bliss anymore, and I gave it up. And actually, like, I think we're in like a great period of options, because living here, like, it's actually really easy to be vegan. So actually right now we're in Cabo, and this entire resort has options. And like, I think that it's only hard if you make it hard, right? Like, so if you're constantly comparing like, oh, like, it's so hard because I can't have ice cream or chocolate or cheese, but if you look for the alternatives, I think it gets a lot easier. And if you look for like ways to make it easy by like finding those options and things like that, and instead of thinking of it as like a loss, I think it's been actually really quite not challenging. So, but that was my journey. It was all from that YJA actually, and then now we're here.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Pankti. I think a lot of us that are in these Jain like networks were introduced to veganism through YJA and through Jain Convention,
Yeah, I don't
me
know if you
included.
remember, Sunny. That was, yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, I was like, you actually were like the first person that was like very pro-vegan. And I remember I had really conflicting opinions because I was like, I know this is wrong. And you were always posting like these vegan options, alternatives. And I got really excited that like I was finding ways to like find, like, I found vegan ghee that year and I was like amazed. Like, oh my God, there's vegan ghee. Like, how is this even possible? But now I feel like it wasn't as hard to give up things because I feel like the reasons that I gave it up were easier to like believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this idea of the 100-point system, and essentially, for those that are like activists or trying to, kind of share vegan awareness in our communities, what this 100-point system essentially says is that uh, every interaction you have that's positive, that kind of is towards veganism. So if you talk to someone that's vegan or you see vegan food on the counter, essentially when you reach 100 points, it would be the accumulation of all those experiences that actually make you make that decision. So even this event could be one point, for example, right? Maybe this could be a start of maybe even thinking about this conversation, and then maybe something else will happen down the road. You'll meet another great vegan person who's very passionate about animal rights, right? And then you're gonna see this amazing vegan recipe online, and over a period of time, this theory says that you would have enough awareness and information to perhaps make that decision. And if you don't make that decision, perhaps you'll be open minded if your kids make that decision, right? So I'm really hopeful for the next generation. And even if you decide that, hey, I'm not able to go vegan, or I choose not to, maybe you'll be more kind to another vegan that you meet on the streets, or when your kids make that decision, you'll be supportive of that decision, because I know that's a huge challenge for a lot of us. So yeah, definitely, Punkti, you want to thank you again for sharing that, and also just want to thank like these Jain organizations that are pushing this out, because I know my first exposure to vegan cheese was at a Jain convention, and there was like two lines. You know how they tend to separate it,
Yeah.
and so and despite how I feel about the separation, it did very much put a spotlight on the vegan line, and I think the non-vegan line was like the line was full. I'm like, oh, I'm not waiting this long for food, right? So I went into the vegan line and I was like, oh, this isn't that bad, right? And
Yeah.
this was like maybe 8 or 9 years ago.
What?
And so, yeah, or at least my first exposure was like 8 or 9 years ago. And since then, I mean, there's been so many innovations in the food space that we have like 7, 8 different vegan brands, cheeses that are better to melt in, cheese that tastes better. We have like smoked Gouda flavored cheese,
I
mozzarella
know
cheese.
there's so many options
Um,
now.
yeah, yeah. And so this wasn't a thing like 7, 8 years ago. So I'm just really excited for kind of the space and where it's going. So with that being said, Bunty, I just want to thank you again. Did you have any final words that you wanted to maybe share? And then after that, I'll pass them.
I think, if I think that everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different, but I think that, like even if you take one step at a time, I think that's what's important.